I'm Joy Morris, inviting you to listen to True Stories of the Wild West, hosted by C.R. King, a production of RK Enterprises.
The City of Angels was established as a sleepy Mexican village in the 1700s. It grew, but not by much. Then the whites started moving in, and it became a wild town. The rancheros were being bought out by the whites, and many married into prominent Mexican families. Wagons came with supplies, tall ships came with supplies, trolley cars were built and developed to move people. The Southern Pacific arrived, and so did population boom. The law enforcement was needed, for oil was discovered, and water was piped in. Both of our people, as the farms were being sold off, our people moved in, of all sizes, all ages. The city grew, and it grew. And progress stepped in. This was Los Angeles in 1880, and this is Los Angeles today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, True Stories of the Old West. What you just witnessed was a minute and 30 seconds introduction to the city of Los Angeles. So let's get to it. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, whatever you want to call it. Abel Stearns came to Los Angeles. He was a trader in 1829. He embraced the culture, changed religions, was accepted by the Mexican people of the little Pueblo de Los Angeles. And his title was Don. He soon became extremely wealthy. He wound up being a landowner. In fact, his land was so vast, basically what is today called Orange County in California was his various rancheros. He married into the Bandini family, like I said. He had a home, which is now, if it was still around, would be in the middle of the 101 freeway, was the social center of Los Angeles. In 1842, Stearns purchased his first ranchero, 28,000 acres. That was the Ranchero Los Alamitos. A drought occurred between 1862 and 1864, which has been said that death of his cattle, was 50,000 head. Stern had to mortgage his ranch. He was hurting, so he sold a piece of one of his ranches to a John Bixby and his partner, Isaiah Hellman, who was the founder of the Farmers and Merchants Bank. From there, it was decided to form a trust and to sell off as much land as he could. As I mentioned, he owned practically all of what is today Orange County. He subdivided it into sections of 40 acres apiece, and the actual first real land rush was on. Abel Stearns would be rich once again. Now, besides that, he was also a county supervisor, a state assemblyman. He was at the California Constitutional Convention. He represented Los Angeles to the United States military government of California. This man was powerful. He was well respected. He was famous in his days. He was a great politician. And he and his wife would take walks down this long beach. And by the way, that long beach they walk down every night is now called Long Beach, California. Phineas Banning came to Los Angeles area in the 1860s. He first moved into an area near San Gabriel Mission. Later, he bought property after he had established a freighting and stage company. It was extremely successful. This was a charismatic man. He didn't have a little bitty money, 50 cents in his pocket, but he knew how to handle people. He was 22 years of age, and he had partners left and right. The land that he purchased was named Wilmington, after his hometown. He built a long pier. He also became one of the 3 supervisors of the Los Angeles Common Council. We call it City Council today. It was a governing body of Los Angeles that was replaced in 1889 by the government. The system of electing a mayor and a city council, with the system of doing so. Anyway, however, Banning was in an elected position, and he held numerous appointed positions as well. He rubbed shoulders with the most powerful houses and joined partnerships with a variety of endeavors. It was Phineas Banning who developed the Los Angeles harbor, started to turn it into what it is today. Obviously, this was way back when. He is considered the founder or the father of the San Pedro Los Angeles harbor. This was huge. He built the first railroad because when he built that long pier, he put a train on it, 21 miles long. Tall ships could come in, unload their products that they were shipping in, passengers, and they took a train to Los Angeles. That's how far it was. A lot better ride, a lot quicker, a lot smoother. Because of what Banning did, the horses and the founder or the father of the San Pedro Los Angeles harbor. This was huge. He built the first railroad because when he built that long pier, he put a train on it, 21 miles long. Tall ships could come in, unload their products that they were shipping in, passengers, and they took a train to Los Angeles. That's how far it was. A lot better ride, a lot quicker, a lot smoother. Because of what Banning did, the horses and the 2-wheel ox carts no longer existed. By 1858, Los Angeles had both stage and horse-drawn freight lines, and that, again, was an error that was going away because of what Banning accomplished. He also helped build the Dunn Barracks, as we call it today. That's all what stands is the barracks for officers. It was a camp, an Army Union camp to protect the city during the Civil War. This was a great man. He was an entrepreneur. He was a competitor. He was tough. He was strong, and he was out to win at all cost. Phineas Banning did a lot to promote this city. Isaiah Hellman and his brother were German. They came to Los Angeles in the early 1800s. They had a dry goods store. They also had a safe, and people needed to put their money somewhere for safekeeping. It's basically gold and silver. We had no dollars then or bills at that time in our area of Los Angeles, of the territory that was owned by Mexico. Somebody suggested that he build and start a bank, and he did. And boy, did that grow large. Before long, he had every major player in Los Angeles as depositors. He was a partner to Henry Huntington of the famous Huntington family of the Union Pacific, Central Pacific Railroad. Huntington started building trolleys or buying out trolleys. And Isaiah Hellman supplied most of the money for that. And boy, were they growing big and rich and powerful. They were. But then Along the ways, as far as banking goes, Henry's Dorothea's brother kind of got lost in the shuffle. And the governor, ex-governor Downey, they have a town called Downey, California, named after him, became his partner. Well, Downey went away when Hellman got angry because Downey, while Hellman was on vacation, shut down the bank for a day because he was afraid of a run on the bank. Hellman said, "You never, ever shut down my bank." He bought him out, and he was off and running on his own. He will grow and become one of the most famous bankers in this country. Moses Sherman, politician with a lot of charisma, very shady. But you know what he did? He built the very first trolley car system. He was able to get out of trouble. He was always in the papers. He was even appointed to the water board. Now, there's something about this water board. Mulholland was developing a system to transport water from Owens Valley to Los Angeles. His partner, Fred Easton, was buying up land all along the river up there. Sherman did what we would call today inside trading. He went to a man by the name of Hobart Whitley, who is the father of Hollywood. He built Hollywood as we know it today. Whitley got together with Harrison Gray Otis, Norman Chandler, Isaac Newton Van Nuys, James Boone, Lancashire. The aqueduct construction began in 1905 and it was completed in 1913. Now, using Van Nuys as an example, he paid him $2 billion for his ranch. But Van Nuys insisted that the town that would spring up would be named after him, and they made a contract. His son-in-law, he too sold it to North Hollywood because they wanted to show a proximity to Hollywood, because the whole focus is on Hollywood for Whitley. He did so. Right down the middle of North Hollywood is a very large boulevard named Lancashire Boulevard in his honor. Moses built a trolley system to go up the side of the roadway, which is called Cuenca Pass, into the San Fernando Valley. These men built North Hollywood, Van Nuys, in a town that would soon become known as Canoga Park because of inside trading. And they had the backing of the Los Angeles Times because they were part of the partnerships. So there is a big street called Chandler Boulevard. There's also a street, or a town, if you will, called Sherman Oaks. I used to live there. That was Moses Sherman's property. Plus, there's a big boulevard. It's called Sherman Way. That was the other train system he built that ran all the way across the valley and back. It's a two-train system. Well, when they took it out, they made that boulevard and they called it Sherman Way in his honor. After Banning built successfully the first railroad, trolley cars started coming up. There was a rush to get the Central Pacific down into Los Angeles. The owners of the Pacific Railroad, the Central Pacific, resisted. They wanted the power. They wanted to take over the rail system. Finally, a deal was made. Banning would have to give up his railroad that he built. Plus, the city would have to come up with $600,000 and they agreed. And the railroad came to Los Angeles. Los Angeles was no longer isolated. There was a much easier path to it. Fruit, vegetables, oranges, as an example. Refrigeration rail cars came to being, and the city grew substantially. It took a while. There were many battles. In the end, the city won out. 1862, Edward Doheny was broke. He was in Los Angeles, and he determined to get rich. He went to a friend because he knew there might be oil and borrowed $400. With shovels and pickaxes, he dug a well. It was 6 feet by 4. When it reached 155 feet, he devised a drilling system. When it reached 225 feet, the well produced 40 barrels of oil per day. It was the beginning of the rush for oil, the beginning of all types of things that happened within Los Angeles. It was covered. The city was covered with oil wells. It was a big haul. But there's a lot more to this. Doheny wound up drilling 300 wells. 225 feet, the well produced 40 barrels of oil per day. It was the beginning of the rush for oil, the beginning of all types of things that happened within Los Angeles. It was covered. The city was covered with oil wells. It was a big haul. But there's a lot more to this. Doheny wound up drilling 300 wells. While Doheny was busy drilling other oil wells, a little lady, a piano teacher, college educated, well bred, she and her husband moved to Los Angeles. He was a carpenter. She was interested in the oil. So what did she do? She had money of her own, $700. She borrowed more from the bank. She had her own line of credit. And she dug a well. It was right next to Doheny's, or very close anyway. Doheny's first well, it got him 40 barrels per day. It's okay. Not great. Her well blew up. It was a gusher. It was huge. It was so big and so much oil was coming out of it that Doheny was shamed by a woman who outdid him. This is Emma Summers. They called her the Queen of California oil. Doheny built oil wells. Others came in to building oil wells, finding. Like I said, they were everywhere. She owned and controlled half of all the oil wells in Los Angeles. It's a lot more than anybody else had ever done. This lady was smart as a whip. She was living in an era where women were not even allowed to vote. This is a smart lady. People respected her, and at the same time, they were jealous of her. Okay, everybody, this is it. If the audience grows enough in the indication that they want to know more about the city of LA, I'll do another version. Because what I've told you today is just the very tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff that went down, good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm talking about crime, political corruption, police corruption, you name it. Los Angeles had it, even back then. So I'm going to let you go. This is C.R. King. Oh, before I let you go, read some of my books. The Last Deputy. There's 2 volumes of A Fraternity of Gunslingers and Lies and Betrayal. I think you'll enjoy them. Thank you for your time. Take care. See you soon.
Stay tuned for next week's tale.